we also recognize that has major implications on everyone who is not working and for our state budget. We knew that, and yesterday we announced the first monthly revenue report in which we really see the impact of this situation is having on our economy. For April, Virginia's revenue collections were down 26%. That is about $700 million less than we would normally collect. Our prediction is that we'll see about a $1 billion loss by the end of June. Last month, we worked with the General Assembly to set aside new spending that we had planned for the next budget year, while we assess the effects the pandemic is having on our finances. We'll continue that work going forward. I'd like Secretary of Finance Aubrey Lane to briefly explain the revenue situation to you. Aubrey, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, we did experience about a $700 million decrease in revenues for the month, but economic activity in the Commonwealth held up well. Approximately 80% of our revenues come from payroll withholding, and that was up 4% for the month, meaning that we had quite a few businesses still operating and paying their employees. I think a lot of that has to do with the strength of the economy. You've heard the Governor mention before we went into this. We also have a strong reliance on defense spending. Those have remained open, those shipyards. Certainly the federal government has remained open. We have a lot of employees of the federal government that are here. So while we have been impacted, we did not see a total shutdown of economic activity, again, with 60% of our revenues, ongoing revenues, up about 4%. About 20% of our revenues come from sales taxes, and they were even for the month, reflecting the move away from in-store purchases now to online, and that was strong, again, during the month. It also reflected a switch from food sales taxes being paid in restaurants to in grocery stores, as we saw quite a bit of activity at the large grocers. Excuse me. And on top of that, I think it also reflects the fact that our ABC stores were open, as those sales were up substantially during the month relating to the general fund. So as you can see, even though economic activity was impacted by the coronavirus and the shutdown of businesses, also economic activity continues on in the Commonwealth. And I do expect it, as the Governor said, to impact us the next couple of months or into the future. But again, our strong basis going into has helped mitigate this. Now, where the loss came from for the month was for the Governor's decision to delay the tax filing payment for last year's taxes from May 1st to June 1st. We would have normally received quite a bit of money in the end of April for payments due May 1st. Now they'll come in at the end of May and due June 1st and some in June. So we had approximately 260,000 individuals and companies pay us this year compared to 540,000 last year during the month. So we do expect to see this going forward, picking up in the month of May and in the month of June. Now, that's when we'll know exactly where we stand. But the good news is, as the Governor mentioned, we had projected to be down about $1 billion for the quarter, and it looks like we are trending right on that, and we'll see how that goes the next couple of months. And while that's important is because I think it's very prophetic that today is the first day that we begin phase one, because now we'll see how the economy is going to respond as we open up. So between now and the end of June, we'll have 45 to 60 days to see how that goes. We'll see how the tax payments come in. And then by the time we need to reforecast our revenues, we'll have some data points that we can use to give us a realistic view of going forward. You've heard the Governor talk about before, doing a reforecast when all this uncertainty would make not a lot of sense. We'll have some of that certainty as we go forward, and that's when you'll expect us to see to reforecast our revenues. Just a quick comment also, the Governor asked me to talk about stimulus funds. As you know, I've mentioned before, the Commonwealth has received over $6 billion in stimulus funds related to some 4 different relief acts and 61 or so different revenue streams. Of course, the one that gets the most publicity is the $3.1 billion we received for the CARES Act. And so we've had some activity around that I'd like to share with you. On May the 12th, we issued instructions to localities around the Commonwealth that we would be distributing approximately $650 million to be used for direct costs related to the virus. They're expected to be distributed here by the 1st of June. We're waiting on the certifications to come back. And we've also already appropriated or obligated about $121 million under the purview of VDEM for the purchase of PP&E, and included in that is also $42.3 million for testing. Now, that doesn't include testing the National Guard's done in some of our private labs, and of course this is going to be an ongoing expenditure, but we've already obligated about $121 million in that. Over and above that, before we knew we were going to get stimulus funds, we had $58 million set aside. In the general fund to cover these costs, we'll use stimulus funds to cover those. So altogether, we've obligated about $878 million out of the $3.1 million that we've been given so far. And on Monday, the 18th, we'll be receiving other requests from all our agencies, and we'll be going through the process of how we're going to allocate the rest of the money. So that's an update of both where our revenues are, where we're headed, and the stimulus funds. Thank you, Governor.